The Catholic Church has a history of over 2,000 years. It is an organization that spans the world. But the insight that the public has is reduced. The Church gives us rules on how to live morally right and virtuous lives. But does the Church itself abide by these rules? What secrets does it keep? In this video, we'll show you 10 things you wouldn't think of the Catholic Church, but which are true nonetheless. Are you fascinated by mysterious things and incredible discoveries? Then give us a thumbs up, subscribe to Hidden Worlds, and join us on our adventure. A team of mummification experts. The Catholic Church venerates numerous saints. Since the middle of the 2nd century, there is evidence of a special form of veneration of saints, the worship of relics. They are believed to have miraculous effects, such as healing powers, and they are displayed in churches, sumptuously adorned for the faithful. These are objects that belong to the saints or their mortal remains. Between 1975 and 2008, the Vatican even had a 31-member team of pathologists, microbiologists, and other scientists working on the preservation of corpses and body parts. Some of this involved very old relics, such as the 3rd century heart of St. Alpheus. In part, the group dealt with the mummification of contemporaries, such as Pope John XXIII. He had died in 1963, and his embalmed body was refurbished in 2000 to make it appear lifelike. Since then, it has been on display in St. Peter's Basilica. Unfortunately, the handling of toxic embalming substances has resulted in many of the team members dying of tumors and cancer. Financial scandals in the Vatican. The Holy See owns valuable real estate and works of art and collects many donations and entrance fees every year. And as elsewhere, where there is money, there are also irregularities in the finances of the Vatican again and again. A small matter here are capers, such as expensive helicopter flights of a cardinal, who also had the expansion of his apartment donated by a clinic. In 2015, there were still several accounts with a total of more than €500,000 for the 2 popes who died in 1978, Paul VI and John Paul I. The Vatican's real estate is said to have been stated in financial reports with only 1/7 of its value of €2.7 billion. In addition, during World War II, the Vatican is said to have enriched itself from what the Nazis took from the Jews. About 200 million Swiss francs are said to have been stashed in the Vatican Bank by Croatian government officials who plundered concentration camp prisoners on behalf of the Nazis and only partially redeemed. Exorcism. At the Pontifical Athenaeum Regina Apostolorum College in Rome, there are courses to train priests as exorcists. In recent years, the Vatican has become more intensively involved with the subject because, thanks to the internet, it is possible to establish contact with Satanism much more quickly. Since 2000, requests for exorcism have tripled, he said. The Diocese of Rome employs about 250 exorcists from 30 countries. An ecclesiastical exorcist sees up to 30 people a day, whom he counsels or treats for an exorcism. A psychiatric or psychotherapeutic evaluation of the person is obtained beforehand. One exorcist reported that psychotherapists would often refer patients to him. The Church says exorcism has nothing to do with magic. Rather, it says an exorcism is a prayer for the deliverance of the afflicted person from a devil or demon, which follows a strictly prescribed process. In addition to the prayers, this liturgy also contains readings from biblical texts. Helping Nazis to escape. In 1948, Bishop Alois Hudal assisted the escape of Franz Stangl, who had run the Treblinka and Sobibor extermination camps and was responsible for the murder of 1 million people. Stangl had come to Rome on a rat line after a prison break in Austria. This is the name given to organized escape routes used by high-ranking Nazis after World War II. Because in many cases, the Catholic Church supported the escape. These routes were also called monastery routes. Hidden in monasteries and provided with new papers, people such as Adolf Eichmann, who organized the persecution and extermination of Jews as head of a special office, or Josef Mengele, who became known for his cruel medical experiments in concentration camps, were able to emigrate with their families to South America. Was this help provided by individuals, or was it organized by the Church and ordered by the then Pope Pius XII? One possible reason for such an order could have been the Pope's fear of communism. However, other churchmen such as Alois Hudal are known to have supported National Socialism. Immense wine consumption. More wine is drunk per capita in the Vatican than in any other state. According to a study by the California Wine Institute, an average of 74 liters of wine per person was consumed in the Vatican in 2012, although 20% less was consumed than the previous year. However, even this amount is significantly greater than the 20-liter drunk on average in Germany. The Eucharist cannot explain the high consumption because the Lord's Supper is usually celebrated without wine. Moreover, the wine is specially made, and it is not included in the sales statistics. In the Vatican, there's a supermarket called Spazio della Nonna by the locals. This expression is supposed to be an allusion to smuggling. True Vatican taxes on consumer goods are low, but wine is not one of those things that are taxed low. Therefore, there's no profit to be made by reselling, which could explain the high consumption, which rules this out as a cause. Rather, one must assume that only apparently more is consumed. That is because there are hardly any children in the Vatican, who are normally included in the calculation of average consumption. The mundane everyday life of the Vatican. In 2012, an incident occurred at the Vatican that was dubbed the VATILeaks. An employee stole confidential information and leaked it to the media. In addition to evidence of mismanagement and corruption, it also involved homosexual activity by churchmen. But such things are nothing new in the Catholic Church, and it knows some popes who had an unimaginable worldly lifestyle. Pope Alexander VI forgave sins and appointed cardinals for cash payment. He had mistresses until old age and publicly acknowledged his children. Pope John XII was even disposed because of his immoral lifestyle. He was accused of adultery, hunting passion, and murder. Churchgoers have been raped frequently, and John XII allegedly died from a stroke during sex. Pope Urban II called for the First Crusade, and thus for genocide. Through it, Jerusalem should be freed from Muslims. In a great massacre, Christians killed thousands of Muslims and Jewish inhabitants of the city. A large, almost secret archive. With the Vatican Apostolic Archives, which until 2019 were still called the Secret Archives, the Pope owns a collection of documents dating back to the 8th century. It contains papal laws and the personal papers of his predecessors. Among them are letters such as that of King Henry VIII, in which he demands an annulment of his marriage to Catherine of Aragon. On 85 kilometers of shelves, there is a request for help from Mary Stuart, Queen of Scots, who was later executed, or a document excommunicating Martin Luther, the originator of the Reformation. Since 1881, not only churchmen but also selected scientists and scholars have had access to the archive, subject to strict rules. For example, one is not allowed to photograph the documents, but must copy what is needed, if necessary. In 2012, there was a public exhibition for the first time, in which 100 selected papers were shown. By releasing the documents of Pope Pius XII, it is hoped to gain insight into the role the Church played during the Third Reich, the world's smallest and oldest army. The Vatican and the Pope are protected by the Swiss Guard. However, because the state is so small, the military corps is very large in proportion. The 0.44-kilometer Vatican has 135 Swiss guardmen at its disposal. The Swiss Guard was founded in 1506. At that time, many Swiss men worked as guards at the courts of the European nobility to escape the poverty of their country. Because of Switzerland's neutrality and its reliability in keeping agreements, the Swiss were held in high esteem, and at one point, it was determined that the Pope's bodyguard would consist only of Catholic Swiss. Since 1914, the Swiss Guard has worn 16th-century-style uniforms with feather helmets and puffed sleeves. Depending on the rank, the uniforms are different colors. However, a blue uniform is worn during drill and at night. The armament is also historical at first glance, with swords and other thrusting weapons depending on the rank. In fact, the Corps also has various modern firearms, pepper spray, and tasers at its disposal. Forgiveness of the worst sins. The Apostolic Penitentiary is a tribunal that deals with whether absolution can be granted for a crime that led to excommunication. This can be, for example, an assassination attempt on the Pope or the breach of the seal of confession. In addition, the court deliberates on cases in which someone is to receive an ecclesiastical ordination. For example, as a priest or bishop even though he has committed murder or performed an abortion or assisted in it in some way. In addition to cases in which the ordinary citizen would consider forgiveness impossible anyway, the tribunal also deals with other forms of indulgence, with the conversion of invalid marriages into valid ones, and with changing the scope of the obligation of individual priests to celebrate masses. For the most serious offenses, only the Pope can grant forgiveness. This form of papal jurisdiction had its beginning in the 12th century. Online for 3 decades. In 1995, the internet was still in its infancy, but the Holy See got its first homepage that year. A bit earlier, a forward-thinking archbishop had secured the .va domain for the Vatican. Since then, the Vatican has been granting online access to various sources concerning theology, church history, art, or other, which are visited millions of times a day. The Vatican has 3 servers of its own for this purpose, named after the archangels Michael, Raphael, and Gabriel. Because an angel is actually a messenger, these are very appropriate names for these sources of information. Pope John Paul II was the first pope to have his own email address. Actually, there were as many as 6 assigned to different languages. It is true that the Pope did not read his emails himself. However, selected mails were printed out and sent to him. In 2001, he even sent one email to the bishops of Australia and New Zealand. As our video has shown, the Catholic Church deals with much more than just praying, and there is quite a bit that seems to contradict its teachings. Which of the facts presented in the video surprised you the most? What would you like to learn more about? Do you know of any other interesting things to say about the Catholic Church? Feel free to write us a comment.